Coming up on Mountain News this morning, we continue our recap of yesterday's severe flooding throughout the region. And we take you to Pike County, where a mudslide is forcing some commuters to find an alternate route. And in Knox County, the judge executive declared a state of emergency after floodwaters left several people without safe drinking water and even stranded some in their homes.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News This Morning.
Good morning. The time is 5:33 on February 7th. I'm Madison Pergram, and thank you for joining us on Mountain News This Morning. On this Friday morning, we're getting closer to that weekend. Let's go to Brandon Robinson first. Brandon, the whole story has been the flooding, but today is the snow.
Right, and there's still high water this morning, so it's still technically the story, but of course now we've switched over to the wintry side of this massive crazy week that we've had with weather, and we're going to continue to see that this morning. Let's go to live pinpoint Doppler radar, and you'll see lots of heavier bands of snow. Anywhere that you see this darker blue, and hold on, I'll circle it for you. Anywhere right around in here, that's some heavier bands of snow coming through there, so we're going to continue to watch that this morning. So just be careful in those areas. Starting to see a break out into parts of the western half of the area. I-75 corridor winter weather advisory continues until 1 o'clock this afternoon for the entire area. So again, slick roads are starting to form, so they'll continue into the afternoon hours because temperatures are not going to move a whole lot. We also have very limited visibility this morning, down to less than 5 miles pretty much everywhere and less than 1 mile in several locations this morning. So just be careful, take it easy. Outside WYMT, it looks like we may have a coating of snow out there. I'll have to step out and look here in just a little bit. It's kind of hard to see from that camera angle, but definitely some visibility issues. Sensors across the region right around 32, a little colder in some spots, a touch warmer in others, but that's basically going to be your trend for today as we take a look at the 12-hour planner. Basically the heaviest snow this morning, and then chances for snow will continue off and on throughout the day. Madison.
Thank you, Brandon. Well, in Hazard, the North Fork of the Kentucky River crested last night at around 26 feet. That's the highest level since 2003. The floodwaters forced emergency crews to close many roads, including parts of Main Street. WYMT's Emily Bennett spent yesterday traveling around Perry County watching the floodwaters rise.
As the floodwaters rise,
it's not as bad as some of the worst ones I've seen yet.
Terrence Blanton walks around Hazard seeing if anyone needs help.
When it gets in these little low areas right through here, it does get bad and everything right down in this part of it. So
he has called Hazard his home for his whole life, seeing many floods and even water rising to the top window of this building.
There used to be a lot of markings of the old floods on some of them older buildings.
The National Weather Service only rated Thursday's flood in the minor to moderate range.
Today is on the mild side compared to some of the other ones that you could never get down in this area.
But the floodwaters still closing many roads and sending Avalon Fire Department to a water rescue on Kentucky 451.
They drove through it and got stalled out in the middle of the water.
A Jeep pulling them out before the fire department arrived.
You will get in a bad situation really quick by trying to drive through water.
Others standing in safety, watching trees swept away.
I seen trees go under there making bell sounds under the bridge down here earlier, and I mean, it sounded like a big gong saying boom, boom, boom.
Now comes the wait to see what damage the water leaves behind.
Now again, that was Emily Bennett reporting, and now the river has crested, but now the next challenge is the temperatures continuing to drop, and the big concern is what below freezing temperatures could do to these wet roads. And in Leslie County, floodwaters took over the Riverfront City Park in downtown Hyden yesterday. You can see floodwater covering the gate, and playground equipment and shelters were submerged in the water. Hyden Mayor Carol Joseph says they are preparing for the next steps.
We'll have to wait till the water goes down, and then it usually leaves a large amount of debris. We'll have to hire somebody to get that. It's more than we can do, because sometimes it's as much as 4 or 5 feet above the bridges down there. If the bridge is still there, you couldn't tell the water's over it.
Joseph declared a state of emergency for the city of Hyden. And in Floyd County, creeks also overflowed their banks. This video taken in the Garrett community shows an entire baseball field underwater. You can see the entire dugout is almost submerged. This was just one flood-prone area affected in the Big Sandy. And a mudslide in Pike County shut down Chloe Road as both lanes were covered in mud, trees, and rocks. WYMT's Buddy Forbes has more on the cleanup efforts.
The rain is not the only thing pouring down in Pikeville. A mudslide flows through Chloe Road, pouring from the mountainside, shutting down both lanes of traffic.
And the slide is still moving. It's still coming off the hill, so we can't even get equipment started cleaning it up until the hillside stabilizes.
Pikeville Emergency Management discovered the slide at around 10 o'clock Thursday morning.
At that point, it only had one lane covered. However, in a matter of minutes, both lanes were covered.
Officials say slides like this can escalate quickly, so they have to work to keep it contained.
That there really isn't anything we can do about it until the rain quits and the water recedes.
But cleaning up the area and others like it across the district takes time.
So your driveway was covered with water, and you go out there and take a shop vac and you scoop it all up and you turn around, put the shop vac up and come back out and it's covered with water again.
Which is why they caution drivers to be aware of high water areas and areas with previous slides.
Because as you can tell with this slide, it's a very quick mover. If you see signs of a slide, if it's out in the roadway, call us.
And to avoid standing water on the roadways.
It only takes a few inches to lift your vehicle up, and then you have no control.
In order to keep the community safe. In Pike County, Buddy Forbes, WYMT Mountain News.
Now that section of Chloe Road next to Pikeville Elementary School is still closed to traffic. And a mudslide here in Perry County led power crews to this part of Hazard on Highway 15. As you can see, that slide brought down a tree right on a power line. This happened around noon yesterday, and the power was out for about 3 hours. Luckily, the outage did not impact too many customers. And the Cumberland Valley was hit the hardest by the flooding yesterday. Take a look at this video of the fast-moving waters at the Cumberland Falls near the Whitley-McCreary County line. You can see the water churning all the way up to part of the viewing area. That area saw 3.5 to 4 inches of rainfall in the last 24 hours. And officials in Knox County declared a state of emergency yesterday. Officials from Emergency Management say about 600 people can't receive clean water. Several are stranded in their homes as high water continues to make roads impassable.
It's terrible. Like I said before, I hate it for families. It's surrounded by water, and they're going in and trying to get them out.
Knox County Emergency Management is working to get water to those in need. And in Harlan County, high water forced first responders to spring into action. There were rescues in several parts of the county, including DeHoy and Baxter. Yesterday, we posted video on WYMT.com of a building floating down the Cumberland River. We will show you more of that and hear the personal impact this flooding is having in our 6 o'clock hour right here on Mountain News This Morning. And no death or injuries are reported in Kentucky due to the weather, but in East Tennessee, a teacher died yesterday when a tree fell on a small bus. Including the teacher, 4 City of Sevierville employees and 1 other person were on board. The woman who died is 36-year-old Brooke Sampson. She was the wife of a city employee. An investigator said the tree tore the roof off the bus. The other people on the bus were injured. Their conditions are not known. And those of us in eastern Kentucky and Tennessee were not the only ones to see severe weather. Early yesterday morning, a tornado touched down in Demopolis, Alabama, killing at least 1 woman. 1 mobile home was carried down Highway 43, leaving only a mangled frame behind. Debris was carried as far as a quarter-mile away. This was one of many tornadoes to touch down as much of the southeast dealt with severe weather. And aside from flooding, severe winds also rocked much of the region. This video from outside of Raleigh, North Carolina shows the raw destructive power on display across much of the southeast yesterday. A road sign was completely torn apart as people tried to make their way down Interstate 44, hitting the front end of the blue car in the right lane, bringing traffic to a near standstill. And now we go to Iowa, where it took a couple days, but we finally have the results for the Iowa caucuses. The state's Democratic Party announces Pete Buttigieg is topping Senator Bernie Sanders in a tight race. John Lawrence reports.
Iowa, you have shocked the nation. Pete Buttigieg ahead in the Iowa caucuses by a paper-thin margin, 1/10 of a percentage point to be exact.
This is a campaign that a year ago, I think a lot of people were questioning why we were even making the attempt.
With 100% of precincts reporting, the former mayor of South Bend, Indiana, took 26.2% of state delegate equivalents in Iowa, with Senator Bernie Sanders in a close second and Senator Elizabeth Warren in third.
We just had this idea that we could build a different kind of politics of belonging based on bringing people together.
Sanders won the popular vote, but it's the delegate equivalents that are used to choose national delegates and the eventual winner of the Democratic nomination.
I suspect that at the end of the day, Mr. Buttigieg and I will have an equal number of delegates to the national convention.
Former Vice President Joe Biden, who some analysts have called a frontrunner in the 2020 presidential campaign, came in fourth in the Hawkeye state. While stumping in New Hampshire, Biden said he respects Buttigieg, but
I do believe it's a risk, to be just straight up with you, for this party to nominate someone who's never held an office higher than mayor of a town of 100,000 people in Indiana.
I'm John Lawrence reporting.
Now, the Democratic candidates have until 1 p.m. Eastern Friday to file a request for a recanvass or recount. And later on this Friday edition of Mountain News This Morning, the Louisville Zoo has a new addition. We'll take a look at that just ahead.
It's going to be a cold day with snow-filled chances. We're going to see, or can we see this weekend? I'll have the latest forecast in about 3 minutes.